Afternoon and welcome to Real Chicks Rock Presents Real Discussions. I'm your host for today and every time that I'm here, Michelle Dawes Bird. Always super excited to be here. Thank you everyone for joining us. I just want to jump right into what Real Chicks Rock is all about. We're all about creatively collaborating and connecting to raise awareness regarding issues that impact women. And we do it by way of community service engagement, public speaking, mentoring, workshops, and the arts. And the last time I was here, which was 2 weeks ago, because we're here every first and third Sunday at 2 p.m., we celebrated 5 years of having these discussions. It just touched my heart so much. I'm still smiling and basking from it, but we got to move on. We got to make progress. That's what we're doing. So this is our first show for season 6, and I'm so excited because today's topic is going to be women and the Universal Hip Hop Museum. And I have none other than Renee Foster and Martha Diaz to join me in the conversation today. Good afternoon, ladies. How are you? I think we're on mute.
Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Martha. I think Renee's on mute. Renee,
hi, Michelle.
Hi. How are you, ladies?
Very well.
Good. So, ladies, I know your background, but please share. Let me start with Martha. Give us a little background about you, Martha, a little bit of your history.
Well, I'll begin with, I grew up in Paterson, New Jersey.
Okay.
And I am a first-generation Colombian American. Mm-hmm. And I started working in the entertainment industry in my late teens. And now I will be celebrating very soon, almost 30 years of being part of the hip hop entertainment industry and community. And I've been a filmmaker, an educator, archivist, curator, and now I am the director of the Hip Hop Education Center at the Universal Hip Hop Museum. I also chair the archives, curatorial and education affairs.
Awesome. Thanks, Martha. Renee, how about you? Share a little bit of your background with us.
Wow. I really started my career in radio at KISS FM here in New York. And although I was working in programming and I loved arts and entertainment, I wanted to be trained as a journalist. Mm. So I went to work for RKO Radio Networks, but very soon after, I went to work in the record industry, and Andre Harrell poached me away from Universal MCA Records to be the first director of publicity for Uptown. But there at Universal MCA, I had the wonderful opportunity to work with a lot of hip hop artists and breaking the careers of artists like Heavy D and the Boys. And that's when I first met the executive director of the Universal Hip Hop Museum, Rocky Bucano, because I also did press on, independent artists on smaller labels that were distributed. I did press on Busy Bee, and that's how I happened to meet Rocky Bucano. Wow. But my work has always been arts and entertainment, and specifically hip hop focused.
Yeah, really? So you always had a thing for hip hop, Renee? You've loved the hip hop music and genre?
I loved it. I became a convert in one night.
You remember
my first love took me to a concert, and I got to see Angie Stone and Cheryl in the Sequence, and that was it for me.
I'm gonna funk you right on up. I'm gonna funk you right on up. Right?
Yes,
right.
I was all in. At that moment, I was all in.
Wow.
All in, yes.
Yeah, the music, the sound, the beats, and how they were, spitting those lyrics and just so funky and soulful. And just to see women do it was just the thing, right, Renee?
Absolutely. And so Angie was my first, female hip hop idol. And then, as other women were emerging like Roxanne Shante and Antoinette, I was crazy. I would go to underground clubs and bombed out places on the Lower East Side to see rap shows. And very often, I didn't care if I was by myself or not, but hip hop was that way.
Right.
You could go anywhere and you could be a part of it. And that was what really drew me to it.
Awesome. Now, Renee, where are you from? Are you from New York? What part of New York are you from?
I was born in Bed-Stuy and I was raised in Queens. I'm the original Around the Way girl LL Cool J was singing around about. Okay, my name is even in his song. But yeah, I grew up in Queens. I have extensive family all throughout Brooklyn and of course in the South too. And I'm a first generation New Yorker, which is really unusual for my generation to have only been born in the North,
Right.
Post the Great Migration. So it's real interesting to have both perspectives.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I would have to say I claim Queens. I claim Queens for sure.
Queens. So set the stage for the people that don't know, because we have listeners all over the world, and especially outside of New York. So tell us a little bit of what the neighborhood was like for you as a kid in Queens. The music, the vibe. Kind of set the stage for us, Renee.
Well, it was amazing. There was so much talent to come out of communities. Here in Queens, neighborhoods have their own names. And, the kids that came out of Hollis and St. Albans, we're talking about LL Cool J,
Right.
Tribe Called Quest,
Right.
De La Soul, and I can go on. And later, of course, there was, 50 Cent and Run DMC.
Right.
So you think about, how much hip hop was bubbling under, but you can't miss the fact that there was such a cross-pollination. Kids would move and leave boroughs and fall into hip-hop crews no matter what borough they were in, and it was a healthy competition. When you think about all the Queensbridge kids, oh my God, you have to talk about, Mobb Deep. You have to talk about Nas, of course, and of course Jay-Z out of Marcy.
Yeah.
So there was a really healthy kind of atmosphere of creativity where people felt that having hip hop as a means of expression was what they really identified with and wanted to do.
Awesome. I'm going to switch over to Martha. Martha, for you, where are you from, Martha?
Well, I grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, and my experience was a little different. I mean, I didn't grow up, we didn't have rap stars around our way, unfortunately.
Right.
But we had, I grew up with immigrant kids from all over the world, Italians, Haitians, Russians, and we were all like latchkey kids. So we used to hang out after school. And for a very long time, I never hung out after school, but one day at 10 years old, I was invited to hang out after school, and that's when I met my tribe. And these were kids who were dancing and listening to music and writing, and at the time, we didn't know it was called hip-hop culture. We were just hanging out, and that's when I first discovered hip-hop in the schoolyard. But I also went to roller skating rinks, and I used to listen to Soul Sonic Force and Shannon and all, and that's when I really started to listen to the music, and I got hooked really quick and then forget it. Once I heard BDP, KRS-One, and Public Enemy, I knew I was, this was the culture, the path, and the truth for me.
Now, did you start as a kid, Martha, like maybe in your teens, start migrating more to New York from Jersey into New York? Was it around your teens? Tell us a little bit about that, because for people that don't know, we got the 5 boroughs, but we always accepted our Jersey people, right? To come on in, party with us, blend with us. So tell us how it was for you as a kid when you started doing that.
Well, my mom used to visit the Bronx, when I was a teenager, and then I learned how to take the bus from Paterson to Port Authority, and I would go to these clubs that I was way too young to be at, but I was there hanging out at the World or the Red Zone, Palladium, just all these clubs, and I I wasn't afraid. At that time, we weren't afraid. As kids, we would take the bus, and if we would miss our bus back, which was at 1 a.m., we would have to stay and wait till 6 in the morning for the next bus. And so we would hang out right on 42nd Street with all the street workers, and you know, and we weren't afraid. I mean, we saw some crazy things.
Yeah,
you know,
back in the day.
shot.
Yeah. Because back then, 42nd Street wasn't as touristy or clean or inviting as it is today, right? So we really would see syringes. You go down further down on the west side, there was definitely used condoms in the street, keeping it 100. The arcade and playland, we go in there and play Pac-Man. That was the game back then. Just trying to kill time, get a slice of pizza. But it certainly wasn't with the bleachers and no traffic going in and out. You know what I mean? And the men in blue are walking around, and the dudes that was hitting the buckets, playing the beat, right? We saw them emerge and then finally get in the videos. But it was totally, it definitely had a different urban type of city grind, but that was our city. We knew exactly how to maneuver within it. So you're absolutely right. We didn't have a sense of fear or anything like that. We just kids just like understanding what this culture was, right? For the most part, right? And the music took us, you know, in different spots and different places, but it brought us together, right? All right. Let me get to Renee. I want to talk to you, Renee, about Kiss FM because I love radio, right? That is my dream. I told somebody today I'm pushing to get onto radio, but I remember listening to Kiss FM and WBLS. Renee, tell us a little bit about your life there at Kiss FM and how did you get there?
Oh my goodness, what an amazing story. First of all, Kiss FM was located at the time at 1440 Broadway, and that was at Broadway at 40th Street, which was exactly 2 blocks from what we call the Deuce, 42nd Street.
That's correct.
And it was really dicey, really, really dicey. We're talking about the pre-Disneyfication, before they cleaned up Times Square and gentrified it. It was, you know, while you could see street kids breakdancing, there was a whole culture. There was a street culture that was very defined by being there in and around the Deuce. And my most memorable experience, I worked morning drive, which meant I had to be at work at 5:30 a.m.
Wow.
And I lived a train ride away in the next borough in Queens. Okay, so when I worked at Kiss FM, I would literally leave my house around 4 in the morning to go to work. Wow. But that was fantastic because I had just, you know, doing that, it gave me entree into programming. I was working for an amazing programmer, Barry Mayo, at the time, who went on to operate WBBR out of Chicago. And so I had a lot of manual programming to do by way of pulling the commercials. Used to be on 8-track cartridges. I'm dating myself now. Okay. And you really had to be organized. You had to pay attention to when the commercial breaks were. You needed to know how long your DJ was going to be on air so that you could move in the space to not make background noise. It was a very, very disciplined job to have. And you had to be willing to be at work at 5:30 a.m.
Wow.
You just had to be willing. And this was after I had worked the midnight shift in the newsroom. I have it reversed. I did radio and then I went to the newsroom.
Wow.
And that's when the street kids, talking about the Deuce, really protected me because they would see me every night at the same time. And they were like, she's not one of us, so where is she going? What does she do? We see her every night at the same time. And so one evening they rolled up and they said, yo, where you going? I said, I'm going to work. And they said, well, you don't look like a hoe. What you do?
Oh,
straight up. We're talking about runaways from all over this country. In and around Times Square.
Right.
And I said, I have a job. I have a real job. I just have to work at midnight, which is why you see me at the same time. Those same kids walked me to work every night as long as I worked that overnight shift.
Wow. And how long did you do that shift, Renee? How long?
I did that shift for a year because I was intent on learning everything I could, you know, and I was working with veteran journalists. The only caveat is that they were all old white men. And I used to tell them they got out the mothballs to come to work. It was fun. I was the only one. So, I kind of just, had the freedom to learn everything. Everybody wanted to teach me what they knew. So it wasn't, they were just old and white. Otherwise, it was wonderful.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful. So you're working at Kiss FM, Renee. You're loving what you're doing. You're learning the business. You're learning all the protocol that goes with it. How did Andre Harrell and you connect? How did that happen for you?
I was working for the Media Relations Artist Development Department there at Universal MCA. And at the time, they did not separate the artists based on genre. So I may turn around and work on Bobby Brown as a solo artist with my bosses, Katie Valk and Juanita Steffens, and then turn around and work an album by Reba McEntire or the Oak Ridge Boys or something like that. And like I said, there was Heavy D and everyone was on the label. Even Gladys Knight was at our label at the time.
Wow.
Well, Andre noticed how much I liked hip hop because I had two things that I would always either hum to myself because we had a very long hallway.
Right.
I would either hum Bonita Applebum.
Oh, Tribe.
Tribe. Or Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, or either Pat Benatar. And he was like,
wow,
your taste is kind of eclectic and you kind of like a lot of music and you want to work for me?
Nice. Wow.
And that was pretty much how it went. He kind of understood that I liked music.
Yeah.
And he was really aware of the work that I was doing as an assistant, working really hard. Although he knew my background, he was like, let me take you out of here and see what you can do. And that's how I wound up working for Andre. And it was really fascinating because new artists, new label, a lot of energy, unknowns. Our most famous artist at the time was Al B. Sure. We had not signed Jodeci. We had just signed Jodeci. And Mary was working so hard to make What's the 411.
Yeah.
We were that new.
It was a great era. It was a great time, man. And then Heavy D and everybody else that came through there. Yeah, that was a great time. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Martha, talk to me about life as a social entrepreneur. And for some of us older people or people that may not be socially savvy, explain to us what that is. Tell us what that is.
Sure. And can I also just say that I think, Renee, we might have crossed paths at some point because I was working for Ted Demme at UMTV Rap.
Yes.
And so then we went off to do Who's the Man, and Who's the Man's soundtrack was a collaboration with Uptown Records.
Yes, we certainly did, Martha. We certainly did. And this is the thing, Michelle, I have to say this about what a dynamic, creative time in that space we were operating in. Martha worked for Ted Demme, who went on to become an amazing film director, but he loved hip hop. And everybody knew each other. Martha, I kid you not, when I was working at Kiss FM, one of my exes had written, "Last night a DJ saved my life." So I got to know Shep Pettibone, Timmy Regisford, all the remixers that did those amazing 12-inch remixes. I knew guys in record pools. I knew producers and songwriters well before I even entered the record industry, which is really what made Andre aware of the depth and the breadth of what I knew and my ability and how I had grown professionally. But yeah, that's amazing, Martha.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a wonderful time. And I remember I was interning, and so was Diddy or Puffy, right, at the time. And so, we ended up becoming well, he became a mogul, and and I became a social entrepreneur. And so a social entrepreneur is someone who develops a business with three standards in mind: that the business is going to be good for the people, good for the community, good for the planet. So that's how we build the business. Now, there are philanthrocapitalists who create businesses, and after they make all their money, they want to give it away, right? But we social entrepreneurs create businesses with, service in mind first, and how we're going to improve the world through our businesses. And so I became a social entrepreneur because I wanted to go against the grain. I worked in the entertainment industry. I started at Yo MTV Raps. I went to Hollywood, worked on a few films with Ted Demme and Jerry Bruckheimer. And I got disillusioned with the whole industry. And so I wanted to be independent, and I wanted to create my own platforms. I became an independent producer. The RZA was one of my executive producers. And I was just experimenting and figuring out, how can I make this a better world and just give other people a chance to join us in this race, right? And so I created a hip hop film festival, and I commissioned or tapped all of my friends in the entertainment industry, filmmakers, activists, educators. And I said, let's do this. Let's create our own hip hop film festival. And they did. They started, we started this and it grew. And then we did another platform, a hip hop education summit that became a big hit. And I just kept creating and producing platforms, and that's how I developed my sensibility of social entrepreneurship. I didn't know, just like with hip hop culture, I didn't know I was doing that until later on, when I almost 40 years old, I went back to school to learn how to sustain my businesses. And that's when I learned that, what I do is social entrepreneurship.
Awesome. Martha, let me ask you, how and why did you get involved with the Universal Hip Hop Museum?
Well, about 7 years ago, it might be, about 7 years ago, maybe a little longer, I heard about the Universal Hip Hop Museum. I actually heard about it before that because I know the pioneers. I became friends with a lot of the artists, and so I've heard rumors about a museum being built, several museums. And when Rocky, I don't know how, Warrington Hudlin connected us. And he wanted me to meet Rocky. And I said, wow, great idea. We need it. How can I support? And I started advising. It wasn't until 2018 that my mom transitioned, and I just had an urgency to live life a little bit different, and I started to figure out what my next steps, my next projects were going to be. And Rocky had a summer soiree, and I was invited to it, and I saw Paradise Gray, and I saw Adam Silverstein, and we discussed how I could support. And next thing you know, a month later, I am helping to curate the first exhibit of the 1960s, 1970s era in our temporary space. And then I started taking on more responsibilities, and we formed a partnership because it worked out perfectly. We were both, our missions are aligned. We have a love for hip hop so much that we want to preserve it for the rest of the world, for millennials to come.
So Warrington Hudlin, of the Hudlin brothers,
yes,
House Party
of the Hudlin brothers, of House Party. Yes.
Awesome, awesome. And so
He's been a mentor of mine for a long time.
Really?
When I started my film festival, which actually next year we celebrate our 20th
Are
anniversary
you
of the film festival.
Congratulations.
Yeah, he was an advisor. He was a partner with the Black Filmmaker Association that he started, and yeah, he's been a
And for
mentor for
those
a
that
long
don't know,
time.
Martha, what's the name of the film festival?
It's H2O Hip Hop Odyssey International Film Festival.
Is it always based here in the States, or does it
It
go
was
around the
based in
world?
New York City. It was started at the Bronx Museum, and we went to different locations. We did a series at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. We worked with Symphony Space. We just traveled the Schomburg.
Yeah.
I one of the things that I, as a social entrepreneur, have done is taking over a public space, right?
Yeah.
It belongs to us. So I see our work and produce our work in libraries, in museums, in schools. And so the film festival wasn't the traditional film festival like Tribeca is always in one spot. It traveled, and it actually inspired a whole movement around the world. There were other film festivals that were born out of this in Europe, in Cuba, in Brazil, and in Africa. I mean, we were all over, and actually in our 20th anniversary, we're planning to connect all of these film festivals and celebrate this milestone together.
Awesome. I want to come.
Yes, you are invited.
Thank
VIP.
you. I'm coming. Thank you, Martha. Renee, my
Yes.
love, tell me how and why you got involved with the Universal Hip Hop Museum.
You know, very interesting journey. I'm not sure how Rocky contacted me, but I was invited to come to a design cipher. Now, I don't know who referred him. I don't know how my name landed into his Rolodex. You know, we had not worked in the record industry together for a while. And so I went to the design cipher, which was really great because it was not only just hip hop lovers, but people from the community, people from the arts sector, designers, architects, you name it, just your next door neighbor, everyone was invited. And as you know, they put us in breakout groups, and they filmed each breakout group. And after reviewing all of the breakout groups and how our particular group interacted with each other and the ideas and, you know, the energy of how we communicated, Rocky said, would you consider, you know, volunteering at the museum, you know, in the capacity of doing communications of some sort? And I said, sure. You know, for me, working in publicity, media relations, artist relations, I've always been very, very clear about the voice with which hip hop was spoken to and through. And its authenticity was a part of the reason why I felt that artists needed someone that would advocate for their artistry in an honest way that allowed them to be who they were. Because people will put you in a box, especially when they want to commodify what you do, particularly your art, your talent, whatever that thing may be. You know, I don't care what it is, there's always someone to tell you what it is or what it isn't or how to do it. Right. I didn't want that for hip hop artists. And coming out of journalism, I always understood that they don't know us, not really. They don't speak to or for us in ways that we or feel respected or seen or related to. So that's always been my mission, to make sure any artist that I work with was able to be as honest about their art and what they create as possible.
Right.
And so I was very, very happy. And I too worked for the Hudlin brothers. I did the premieres. I did the press for the premieres for the Black Filmmakers Foundation for I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, New Jack City, and Above the Rim.
Nice.
So they have a wonderful legacy of helping and bringing people along. And I'll tell you a very interesting anecdote. One of the acts on Uptown, Groove Beat Chill, was the inspiration for the lead protagonist in House Party, Kid and Play, as portrayed by Kid and Play. But Groove Beat Chill did not have a record released yet. So the Hudlins decided, because Kid and Play were already charting, they had comedic talent, that they could, fit into those roles perfectly in that film. And that film is now a classic.
Yes.
And Daryl Mitchell, who was a member of Groove Beat Chill, is now a well-known actor in film and television, in spite of becoming a paraplegic.
Yes.
He is still an amazing actor, doing very, very well. So there's something to be said about all of us that came out of Uptown. Puffy was our intern, but I can tell you he worked harder than all of us put together. And it was kind of understood that we needed to be driven to accomplish this particular thing. But learning, this culture had to be positioned a certain way and thought of as in a certain way. I took it seriously from the very beginning.
And you have two things in front of you, Renee, two things that are on your heart, not only just the genre itself, but now you're doing things to just make sure a woman's voice is heard, right? Women in hip hop themselves being heard. So talk to me about celebrating women in hip hop during Women's History Month in March. I heard her story, Beyond Music. Great panel discussion. Renee, you were on that panel. It was awesome. Very good conversation.
Thank
and it
you.
was similar women like yourself that are passionate about music, passionate about Blacks in music, and preserving what we're doing, right, through these museums. And so I thought that was interesting. But I want you to expound a little bit about the Fresh, Bold, and So Deaf initiative, if you can.
I have got to cede the floor to Martha, because that is Martha's baby. And can I just tell you, it is stacked with so many amazing women that have worked in so many areas in arts and entertainment, specifically to support hip hop. Women whose stories that have gone unheralded simply because they were not necessarily artists. And that doesn't even include all of the women that did not get their opportunity to fully have their artistry because of, sexism, misogyny. But I'm going to cede the floor to Martha, because Martha can tell you better than I ever could.
All right, come on in, Martha. Tell us about.
Well, like Renee said, this is a collective of women who have decided to come together to tell our stories, as we know it.
Right.
Because too many times people are telling the story and we can't, we don't have the platform. And so I decided that while I was in school at NYU, I created a womanhood learning project, really for the younger generation of women and girls growing up, so they could learn about women's history. But then it turned into something else, because I thought maybe an anthology of these stories would be better. Maybe we need to do a book, publish a book, and actually add our photos and our archives of, to prove we were there. We're there. We did this. And then it turned into like, wait, let's celebrate each other.
Right.
And so the Fresh, Bold, and So Deaf initiative is a celebration, a preservation project, and and an education project where we are coming together, because all these women that are part of this collective, they have their own projects, their own initiatives. They either have a B-girl initiative of dancers, or musicians. Like we have Akua Naru, who has the Keepers Project. We have, who else is part of our, there's so many that now, like, of course, I'm blanking out. but we have Two Fly with her, the Ladies Love Project, which are all visual artists.
And Rockefeller,
that's with the whole B-girl scene. And so we have filmmakers, scholars, MCs, dancers, DJs. We have them all represented. And they're, you know, we definitely want to, we include our big celebrity names. You know, we welcome them all the time, especially Queen Latifah and the first generation, or the second generation of women that are now still out doing their thing. We also are mentored and supported by the pioneering women like Cindy Campbell and Sha Rock and Roxanne, which over the years have always given me a lot of love and support. So we always acknowledge them. But then also we have this new generation of girls that are like 10 years old, winning all kinds of battles around the world, and they're just remarkably talented. And so we are bringing them along. So it could be, you know, intergenerational acknowledgement. And so I really love this project because the museum has embraced it as its own. And within the museum, there will be a Women in Hip Hop collection dedicated, you know, in conjunction with this project, Fresh Bold So Deaf.
Awesome. I felt the passion of you talking about it too. I felt it. For those that don't know, tell everybody where the museum is going to be. Say it loud, because there's people that need to know. The Universal Hip Hop Museum will be located where?
Go ahead, Renee. That's your thing.
Where is it, Renee?
The Universal Hip Hop Museum is going to be located at 65 East 149th Street. Currently, you can visit the temporary exhibition, our pop-up exhibition, which will remain open until the doors open on our permanent home. You can visit the Revolution of Hip Hop at 610 Exterior Street, but you must go online to reserve your tickets. It is a timed entry. We have COVID safety protocols to keep everyone safe, and we're open Thursdays through Sundays, and the permanent museum will open fully to the public in 2024. We will have a soft opening in 23, but the full site, the Bronx Point waterfront development site, where we are the cultural anchor as designated by the New York City Council, will begin to be open to the public in 2023, with the full museum and the entire Bronx Point open in 2024. COVID has set everything back a year, essentially, here in New York by way of construction. But we're really looking forward to it. We are a part of a mixed-use project. The first phase, where we do our soft opening, will also include 542 all affordable housing units. We're going to have space for the Bronx Children's Museum, Bronx Works, which is also a community service organization that serves the grassroots community's needs, you know, in terms of whatever social supports you may need. There will also be that organization on site at that location, in addition to us. There will be restaurants, shops, and lots of places, open space. The Esplanade. I'm particularly excited about that Esplanade because the Harlem Riverfront, where we're going to look out onto, had been undeveloped for years. And it's in Mott Haven, right across the street, basically underneath the bridge from Harlem. There's no reason why that beautiful waterfront space has gone unused for so long. Well, listen, we're going to have a waterfront that's going to rival the Promenade in Brooklyn Heights. And as a New Yorker, you know exactly how beautiful that is. So we're very, very excited to be a part of that.
Renee, let me ask you, was there any controversy about where the museum should be, or did everybody agree that it should be in the Bronx?
No question it was supposed to be in the Bronx.
Okay.
No question. From the very first time Herc dropped the needle on the record, it was in the Bronx. Okay. No one would question that. Okay. Because if you question that, you've got to question,
right,
how did BDP rise?
Come on.
You know, this was not casual. It didn't happen out of ether. Right. It happened for a reason. Yeah. And you know, it is so important that people like Martha, as educators, formally, educators, curators, archivists, they're critical to this culture. Why? Because people need to understand that there were a lot of social things that went on that made that burst of creativity, that created the Big Bang, that became hip hop, that changed the world. There has not been a cultural movement to go global in the way the youth culture of hip hop has done. Only educators, only archivists, only curators can make it formally accepted and recognized for future generations to understand the power of what this culture became from a block party in a park jam.
Come on. Come on, Renee. Come on, Renee. You preaching, you preaching. I want to ask you, Renee, what makes this museum so different from the others? I think you touched on it a little bit more, but I want to give you a platform to lean in some more about it. Why will this museum be different than any other museum that we have, especially that emphasizes or focuses on our culture as Black people, right? So there's an African American History Museum in DC, but why will this one be so different?
Well, let's start with the fact that this museum was inspired by Black and Latinx culture.
Yes.
You cannot look at any inner city and not see the mosaic that Black and Latinx people bring to every city that grounds it. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. As a child, I thought Spanish was in the water in New York City. Just my childlike mind, but to give you a sense of why it had to be in the Bronx, anybody that's Black or Latin knows. We did this. Black kids and Latin kids together, dancing, rhyming, you know, in a cipher together. People in rap battles. This was Black and Latin kids. Okay. I'm not saying that others that have embraced the culture haven't contributed, but what Black and Latin kids sang about, wrote about, talked about, listen, you can go from The Message to Lin-Manuel Miranda, talking about living in the Heights. This is our story. There's no other way. No one else could tell it in the way we can. Okay? So you can't say hip hop started across 8 Mile. Don't get the goddess started over here.
Okay. Come on, goddess.
Okay. Hip hop did not start at 8 Mile. Hip hop started at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue. Now, yes, it did travel to Long Beach, the LBC. But you've got to think about the cultural melting pot. And I do mean a cultural melting pot that was inspired by Afro-Latinos, African-American Blacks, the rhythms, the instruments, the beats, all of it, all of it, all of it. And you've got to go back to Mott Haven. You cannot talk about the rise and the birth of hip hop without talking about Mott Haven.
Got to do it. I'm going to go to Martha. Martha, because you're an educator, I know this is a great opportunity to bridge the gap. Share with us a little bit more about your educational space with the Universal Hip Hop Museum, things that you're planning, you're doing now, futuristically. What do you see for us in learning about the culture even more?
Sure. But I want to add something to what Renee said, because with Herc's party, it is the first documented party, right, that we know of.
Right.
But we know that there were other parties and other stories. And what this museum will do is allow for us to explore and debate, contest in a very civilized way our history.
Right.
And so I think that's also very important to say why this museum matters. It isn't that we're just telling one story. We're here to tell all the stories within hip hop.
Right.
And with education, that's where we come in and we start fact checking. We create timelines. We create curriculum that is culturally relevant for students in schools, so that they can learn how they're connected to this culture and how they're still contributing. They are part of the new history that's being preserved, being created. And so we want to preserve that as well. And so we have tools like timeline tools, and we have workshops so that they can learn the foundation of all the elements of hip hop. We have lectures from our architects and scholars. We have book talks, movie screenings, and we have like summer camps that we're developing. One summer camp that is going to take place is one that is going to teach kids about curation, and they're going to learn about the different artifacts, and they are going to make selections and create their own exhibitions.
Nice.
And so this is what it's all about: inspiring young people to love the museum, to take over the museum, to possibly, take a job and a career path in a museum. And so I am so honored to be part of this education department, to start laying the foundation. We have an incredible committee of educators and scholars that are with us, and we meet every week, doing the research, making sure that our story is correct, because people are looking to us, for the truth. And so I shout out to my team.
Yeah, you got a great team. I'm going to throw in a couple of a plug and a comment here. Being born and raised, I'm leaning into the mic for those that can't see me. Born and raised in Bronx River Projects. You already know where I'm going with this. So to see Zulu Nation, to see Bam spin in the back of the center with the extension cord coming from his house, just to give us a vibe, just to give us music, to hear James Brown broken down the way it was broken down, to hear Roman candles, it was a thing. So it's going to be very interesting to see the story, the timelines that are presented in the museum, because we're going to be from, as you're saying, Martha, different neighborhoods did different things, different times, and it's going to all line up to what we're seeing and witnessing today, So it's going to be an amazing thing. I also want to say this too. I think it's very important, and I tip my hat off to the Universal Museum, the Hip Hop Museum. It's so critical, because with social media now, we're able to see that the culture is international. You see Asian people b-boying, b-dancing, wearing Adidas suits, right? With the shell-toe Adidas, the whole look that we curated in New York City is like going abroad. So I would love to see that respect is paid where it needs to be paid, and that we can continue to cultivate us in the U.S. For those that want to learn about it, maybe didn't even know it existed, that they get more ingrained into it, because it's a genre, it's a movement, it's a culture, it's a business, it's a lifestyle that I feel at times is slipping away, because, and it leads to my next question or comment, rap artists today feel like they don't have to drop 16 bars, right? It's a different type of rap. No diss, no shade. It's just where we've evolved to. But how do we bridge the gap? Because there was a rich essence of being a lyricist. That was one thing I liked about Mos Def. right? Yassine Today, right? The fact that he was there were lyricists, there were people that knew how to write and tell a story, that I feel that the culture today has maybe moved away, or the storytelling is different because the environment is different, right? So I'm going to ask Renee, what are your thoughts on that, Renee? A little different today? Are we missing the mark? Because, you know, you coming up with Uptown Records, you seen it, heard it, smelled it. You know, Martha made mention of KRS-One and BDP. Where are we today with hip hop? Like, are we losing it, or we still got it? Oh, Renee, if you're talking.
Here I am. Listen, I think we still got it, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I know that a lot of what is being made today isn't necessarily for my ear, but there are still amazing storytellers. You know, I'm always listening for who's bubbling under that can tell me a story. I listen to DaBaby, and, you know, there are certain artists that, you know, if you put me in the mindset of, like, if you make me think I'm listening to Too Short, I'm paying attention.
Right.
Now, I know I'm not going to put down folks that are the flavor of the moment, because somebody likes that flavor in that moment. So I'm not going to knock that, but I'm going to tell you, I've always understood that much of rap has the shelf life, a short shelf life. It is when you really bring yourself to it and you really bring your art to it. That is what makes your record still get played 25, 30 years later. You can't tell me country grammar doesn't sound as good today as it did when it came out 20 years ago.
Wow.
But once again, I felt like I was in St. Lou, rolling on dubs.
Right, with Nelly.
Right. So I'm going to always listen for storytellers. You know what they say, the expression is the wheat will fall away from the shaft.
That's right.
So what's good's going to rise to the top, the rest will fall away, and I'm still going to be dancing in my living room when it's good. You know, I like Jack Marlowe, what's poppin'?
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Listen, I even like Thrift Shop by, what's that child's name? Macklemore.
Yeah.
So if it makes me dance, I'm going to listen. I'm not going to say, I'm not sure I like the person who made it. I just have to like it.
You have to like it.
I want to hear something that moves me, makes me snap my neck, make me want to dance. Not a lot of it does, but quite the bit that does, I really love.
Okay. And
a lot of it doesn't make it to the media. Right. You know, the media controls what we hear and what we see.
Right.
And so a lot of the amazing young artists that are coming up, they are just not, you know, in the media.
Right.
But with a museum like this, we can create a platform to showcase new artists.
That was the thing. That's awesome.
And we are an international museum, and we are a smart museum.
Yeah.
So we are using the latest technology to make connections here.
Yes.
So we have VR technology, AI technology, AR technology. And so we will be able to be in the same place like how we are now with Zoom, with an international audience.
Phenomenal.
And so that more to come.
Yes, I'm gonna be leaning in to understand. So I want to ask, so how can people stay connected, Martha, to the museum? Like, do we go to a website? Do we sign up? So we can get like email notifications to understand? What do we do to just stay connected and be supportive?
Yes, well, you should definitely go to the website uhhm.org, and we have a newsletter that you can sign up. We are relaunching the website. We have a new website that will be launched when Renee, I think middle of May.
The mid-May, I'd say mid-May. We are absolutely preparing for a huge ceremonial groundbreaking.
Yes.
So our new website will absolutely be up and running mid-May, in advance of May 20th, when we have that when we have the groundbreaking. So yeah, visit us, subscribe to our newsletters, follow us on all of the social media accounts we have, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, whether it's Twitch, whether it's Twitter. We're there. We're there as the official record of hip hop. And if you really want to know, what's really good,
right.
And then follow us and keep current and find out what we're doing and what new installations and events and programming and all the things that we love about hip hop that we're doing to bring it to the public.
Are you ladies interested in receiving donations, like artifacts from that era, like clothing or flyers or anything else that we can use? Right?
Yes, absolutely. Martha, please talk to Michelle about archiving and curation and how important artifacts and memorabilia are to the museum.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. We are searching and accepting anything, any memorabilia, cultural material, apparel, objects that could help us map out the story of hip hop. And so you can email me personally at martha@uhhm.org. And I work with Adam Silverstein on the archives and collection. I also work with the curatorial team, and that is made up of our chief curator, Paradise Gray, and co-curator, Pete Nice from Third Base. Paradise is from X-Clan, and Senyan Kelly. So we are always looking for material, and right now we have about 40,000 pieces. But that's small. That's small because just 30,000 of those items are vinyl albums that we got as a donation. But yes, we are seeking posters, laminates, anything you have that could, again, help us with preserving hip hop history.
Awesome. Thanks, Martha. Renee, what about you? Any closing remarks or comments? What do you envision for the museum? What is it that you hope the message will be when people come?
My goodness, as the official record of hip hop, what I envision for this museum as a smart museum of the future is to be a focal point in the community. My aspirations are so big for what it can be to the community that it serves and the world beyond it. Martha talked about us being, doing artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality. I feel that our museum opens up the world to the culture in ways that we kind of take for granted because the influence of the culture has been so powerful. When you think about the things we've done and the influence that we've had within hip hop, this museum will make the world understand how powerful a movement hip hop has been, because it has transcended socio-economic, race, class. We're 4 generations in now. So this museum is really the epitome of a place where you can understand the history of how hip hop happened, how it happened to be born in the Bronx and raised worldwide. And this is where you'll get that information officially, and you'll get facts and not speculation. And you'll see artifacts that were used, worn, carried, sold, owned by people that were participants of this culture. And that's what's important. That's my wish, that is my dream and my hope for this museum, that every person that comes through that door understands the power of what Black and Latin youths created.
Awesome. Amazing. Renee, how can people find you or get with you or chat with you or leave donations or just...
They can email me at renee@uhhm.org. Okay? And I answer all my emails.
Yes, she does.
I talk to people when they call me.
Yes, she
like
does.
a human being.
I'm so honored. Martha, Renee.
And I make them know that I care about this, and I care that you care, whoever you may be. If you call me about anything I'm going to give you my time because it all matters. Everyone that loved this culture contributed to it.
Yeah.
I don't care if you just danced or went out and bought your fresh Kangol or your freshest pair of Nikes you could ever buy, your first Reeboks. You love hip hop.
Gazelles.
Okay?
Don't forget the gazelles.
Don't forget the gazelles. I want a pair right now. So, and it really matters when we look at each other and we see how much hip hop has contributed. I think it's critically important that we remember how valuable it has been, how much it has lifted up people. I think the example of inspiration that we can point to that is most recent, I want you to look at the way people talked about the inspiration that DMX provided through his art.
Yes. Yes.
This is the power of hip hop.
Yes.
It will transcend everything you go through. If you bring yourself to it, if you show up, if you really show up with your art in hip hop, you will never be forgotten, ever.
I love it. On that note, there's nothing else for me to say, but just thank you. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you.
Renee Foster. Thank you, Martha Diaz. I got a little moisture in my eyes because it was just a passionate and informative conversation. I thank you ladies so much. Listen, I want to thank all the listeners. Get Live Radio in UK and Germany, WDJY 99.1 FM in the Metro Atlanta area, the online channel, and Beat Break Radio for just always playing our shows. We so much appreciate it. You guys know me, Real Chicks Rock. I'm everywhere. You can find me on Instagram under Real Chicks Rock, Twitter, realchicksrock.com. You guys need to subscribe so that you understand what's going on when we're doing things. Subscribe and like our channel. We got a Facebook page over there. I'm just blown away. This conversation was so good. I have to dedicate, I started doing this at the last show, and I'm going to do it every time we go out as my outro. I said it today, and I'll say it again. I love radio. I hope my goal is to take this platform to radio. So we're working on that, right? But as a kid growing up in New York, in the Bronx, I listened to not only to Renee on 97, not on KISS FM 98.7 FM, but I listened to WBLS every night. And I listened to a gentleman by the name of Frankie Crocker. And he ended his show with this: may you live to be 100, and I live to be 100 minus a day, so that I never have to know that beautiful people like yourself have passed away. Thank you, Mr. Crocker, for leading the way for so many of us in this space of radio and communications and journalism. That's my time. You guys be well, take care, and continue to rock on. Jack.